As we mentioned before, recording is an art. And because of this, there are no formulas or even complex algorithms that we can follow to make a great recording time and time again. But there are fundamentals that apply to all great recordings. Here are some in no particular order that we're going to be referring to along the way. Number one, always keep the final destination of the recording in terms of its listener and listening device in mind from the beginning of the recording process to the end. What exactly do I mean by this? Think about it. Who will ultimately be listening to things and under what conditions? Is this recording going to be used to book gigs, and will it be listened to predominantly by club owners in MP3 format over computer speakers? Or is it a guitar vocal that will be distributed to band members as a work tape? Or is it a guitar vocal that will be listened to over a stereo system in a publishing house? Or is this a larger production that will be played at a club over a huge sound system? All of these factors play a very important role in the decisions that apply to mixing, processing, mastering, mic choice, and mic placement. Number two, don't immediately jump into using effects or plugins. Create complex sounds with layers of what you do best, your instrument. Now follow me here. Think of layers like a cake. Let's take a look at an example. You're listening to a recording of the New York City Found Object Orchestra. They've been around for about 5 minutes and have tracked their first session. I called and tried to get the actual New York Philharmonic Orchestra, but I kept on getting disconnected when I told them about the project. And to be honest with you, it was almost like they were hanging up on me or something. Anyways, back to the cake. Whether you play guitar or, in this instance, a radiator cover, you can create space and size by recording multiple tracks of the same instrument playing different parts, or even playing the same part. Let's analyze this piece. First of all, we only have 3 instruments here. We have a radiator cover, we have a shaker, and we have a percussion kit that consists of a cymbal and a pint glass. This was all recorded with no EQ or processing and is being played back with no EQ or processing. Let's look at the radiator cover. This is a good example of playing the same instrument layered with different parts. In this case, we have a low part and a high part. Individually, they're quite simple. Take a listen. Now when we mix them back together, there's definitely some more complexity to the instrument. Now let's look at the shaker. When muted and brought back into the mix, you can hear that the shaker alone gives the recording movement and pushes the composition forward. In fact, go listen to a bunch of rock and pop studio recordings and you'll hear that shakers and tambourines are on a lot of them. It may be subtle, but they really do add so much. Which is why it's always been confusing that the least rhythmic people during a live show always end up with these instruments, like groupies and drunk audience members. But anyways, I digress. Aside from movement, this is a great example of the same instrument playing the same line in layers. By layering the 2 separate recordings of the same instrument playing the same thing, it fills it out, making it sound bigger. Think about a symphony. Why are there multiple instruments playing the same part? You know, again, if I only had the Philharmonic. But anyways, listen to the shaker by itself. Now let's add the second shaker. That definitely fattens up the sound a bit. Now pan that second shaker to the left, and whoa, we have a little space here. Now let's get real crazy. Pan the first shaker all the way to the right, and now it's surrounding us. Now you may ask, why not just duplicate the track, put it on a separate one, and then pan it out? Why? Because our ears can't tell the difference. In fact, the shakers are not in perfect unison and can never be played in perfect unison. This tells our ears that they are different sound sources. Panning them out says that they're coming from different directions, thus creating space. Haha, witness the power of stereo recording. Now when it comes to the cymbal and the pint glass, besides just wanting to play a cymbal in a pint glass, this track is layering a different voice. That's pretty much it. The glass is adding a compositional element, and the cymbal is adding a little bit of icing on the cake to the high end. Listen when it goes away. You know, I miss it too. Let's bring it back. So, what's that you said? This doesn't apply to you because you play a real instrument? You play guitar? Alright dude, fine, whatever. If you notice, each track was recorded mono with 1 mic. So what if you had 2 mics? Even better. Let's look at this guitar track as an example. So we are here with our friend and guitar player, Mr. Stack. Mr. Stack, what's your first name again?
Marshall.
How appropriate. Anyways, Mr. Stack has recorded a track. This is a close miking of his guitar amp. That's really nice, Mr. Stack.
Thanks, dude.
Anyways, as I mentioned before, you can do a lot with just one microphone. You can take it, record a track, go back and record another track of the same thing to create some depth. So what is this about having two microphones that I speak of? Well, let's go back to that original track of Mr. Stack. It's kind of funny, it all rhymes.
Yo, hey, watch it, bro.
All right, yeah. So anyways, back to that original recording. Mr. Stack had one mic up close to his amp. Now, what if Mr. Stack had a second mic and had it about 3 times back? Like recording the same thing, but a little bit further away while you also had the one up front. This is what you would get. Again, listen to that. The sound has changed a little bit. Kind of gives it a little bit of a fuller sound around the mid-range, I guess you would say. But check this out. Now, since that second mic is actually further back, it is actually recording the exact same sound a little bit later in time. That little offset of time is going to create some depth. So look what happens when we actually pan this out. Widens it out a little bit. So, you know where I'm going, Mr. Stack?
Yeah, you tell him, bro.
Recording 2 stereo tracks of the same thing and panning them out accordingly. So look at that. All of that from just 2 regular old microphones without processing and effects. Number 3. Some of you may have heard this before, and it's really quite simple. When it comes to recording, there is no way to mix and process your way out of a bad performance on a great instrument, nor can you mix and process your way out of a great performance on a bad instrument using bad mics or faulty cabling. Recordings are only as good as their weakest points, from the performer all the way down to the little things. Of course, this is rather subjective, and who are we to judge what is good and what is bad? But go back to rule 1 and ask yourself, is the resulting sound a product with intended consequences, or is it at the mercy of unwanted factors? Are you hitting that note in the spirit of Thelonious Monk, or do you need to go back and try again? Are you using a mic you found in the basement because you truly like the way it sounds, or should you shell out a little extra cash for a solid proven mic? And yes, I really do mean a little extra cash. Because do you really need a $3,200 microphone to make a $1 MP3? Who knows? Number 4, recording each track separately can potentially lead to a dynamically flat recording. Almost all of you will be recording one track at a time, and it's important to keep the original dynamics of your song present while tracking. This will definitely require an example, so let's go ahead and take a look. There's really nothing wrong with it if we intend to use this as background music or a loop in a commercial production. But if this song were to feature a vocalist or a soloist, it would have nowhere to go dynamically. How did all this happen? We've created more than enough layers of sound, and it's got a good groove, but it's still flat. This is because the dynamics of the song were ignored back in the beginning. Why? Because there was nothing for each player to refer back to for guidance. The first track was a drum loop at a constant rhythm and volume, and everyone else just followed suit. There was a lot of duplicating and processing to at least create some depth, and a bridge to break things up. But all of this could have really been easily avoided by either playing with someone else who knows the song and creating a scratch track of that additional voice or instrument, or just simply remembering the dynamics of the original song. All right, enough learning. Let's do something.